So I had done a video a few weeks ago when all of this crisis had started, and we were getting bombarded, obviously, by calls from folks very, very panicked about foreclosure, about eviction, bankruptcy, what to do, what not. And so now, we find ourselves several weeks out, and some states are reopening. Here in Georgia, we are going to be reopening, looks like next week. So things are going to start grinding back into motion, and that means that creditors are going to start their processes as well, because at the end of the day, everyone has to get back to work, and that includes creditors, that includes mortgage companies. There's been a lot of talk on the news about the CARES Act. We have done a blog about it. Like I said, we had a previous video about it. And so now we want to do something specifically about foreclosure. And I would really, really urge you, if you look in our description below, there's a link. We have a foreclosure guide to Georgia during this COVID-19 crisis. We also have this on our website. It's free. I would definitely urge you to get a free copy of it. It just gives you a game plan in terms of what to do if you think you may be facing foreclosure. And I also want to talk about what forbearance is versus a loan modification. So we're hearing a lot of these words thrown around, and some folks don't understand what they mean. So let me start with this. Everything is going to be determined on whether or not you have an FHA-backed mortgage or you don't. So if you look in our guide, it's going to have specific instructions on how to check if you have an FHA loan. I mean, some people don't know, and that's okay. But what options are going to be available if you do? And then if you don't, what are some options that are still available? But I did want to talk about forbearance, because that word is, like I said, is getting thrown around a lot in the media. And basically, if you get behind on your mortgage, you can ask your lender for a forbearance period, because it might be that you've just had a bump. Maybe you've had a surgery, maybe you've had a job loss or hours reduction because of all of this going on. So there's a variety of reasons, but you're basically just asking to push those payments forward a few months, and then hopefully at the end you can just make a lump sum payment and move on with your mortgage loans. That's really what a forbearance is. It's not where you're putting it at the end of the loan or you're modifying the loan. That's a loan modification. It's something different. So obviously everything depends on who your lender is, but you really need to make sure that you are checking with your lender, that you're getting things in writing. By the way, this is all covered in the guide below. So again, I'd urge you to download it, take a look at it, because we have very specific instructions on how to check this. But just be aware, if you're only being offered a forbearance, because like for example, with the CARES Act, you can get a forbearance for 6 months, and then if you're still having issues, you can get another forbearance for another 6 months. So I mean, you're talking about a year of not making mortgage payments. But at the end of the year, so on month 13, you got to come up with 13 mortgage payments. So there's some provisions, and again, read the guide so you can see what you can do. But let's say, you don't have an FHA back loan and you don't have any of these protections, but your lender's still working with you, because a lot of lenders are still working with folks, even if they don't have FHA loans. So they're still doing forbearance. And I've seen a lot of lenders still do loan modifications, which I think is great. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to make your mortgage payment, and you're not going to be able to get caught up at the end, you need to be also reaching out to your mortgage company to see, okay, hey, thank you so much for giving me this forbearance. What other programs will I be able to apply for at the end of it so I can make sure I can keep my home? Obviously, loan modification is going to be the main one, because they will be able to take that money, throw it onto the back end of the loan. Sometimes they can work with interest rates, just depends. Of course, everything is lender dependent, but that would be the better option. Be very wary. I always have to make a spiel about this because it drives me crazy, and I see so much of it as a bankruptcy attorney. Do not pay anyone to modify your loan. Do not pay anyone to do a forbearance for you. There is nothing special. They don't have any little secret channels where they get you what you need. All the lenders, they all have their requirements, their paperwork. You fill them out, you send it in. They either grant it or they don't. So don't get scammed is what I'm telling you. When the crisis happened in 2008 and 2009, and yes, I've been around a very long time, I'm a dinosaur, we saw this on a daily basis, and it was heartbreaking. People had literally spent like $5,000 paying some company to modify their loan. And a lot of these folks aren't even in the state of Georgia. Of course, they operate outside and they're just wiring money. I mean, it's just horrible. And they'll have fancy websites and they just look like they're the most legit organization ever. And then after a few months, poof, they disappear, and so does your money. So my biggest warning is do not pay anybody to do any of these services for you, because most of the time you're just going to pay money and you're still going to be in the same situation. So anyway, back to the other part, what I was talking about with loan modifications and with forbearances. The best case scenario is you can get a forbearance on your mortgage payments right now if you're having problems. If you're not having problems, don't ask to do a forbearance. Like you can create problems for yourself that you don't need to. If you can afford to make your mortgage payments, make your mortgage payments. Best bit of advice. But if you cannot, and there's a lot of people that can't, then ask for a forbearance from your lender. Even if you don't have an FHA loan, ask for a forbearance. Ask what other options are available, because even if you're granted the forbearance, when that ends, and if you don't have all that money to give to your lender, you may be able to get a loan modification and then just take care of everything, and you can avoid a foreclosure. So worst case scenario though, and there's always a worst case scenario, the worst case scenario is you can still stop the foreclosure on your property. You can file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and that will stop the foreclosure immediately. So as soon as the case is filed, the foreclosure is stopped. So don't worry if you're going through all these programs and you're getting frustrated, and I will tell you, it can be a very frustrating process because you have to turn in paperwork. Sometimes they don't get it. I mean, it's very frustrating. And understand the lenders are being overwhelmed with requests. So it's very chaotic on their end too. I don't think they're doing anything intentional. They want people to be able to stay in the homes, to be honest with you, and just keep paying. And everyone makes money. But you just have to keep pushing. You have to be very organized. But if you find yourself facing a foreclosure after you've gone through all these steps, again, check out the guide, goes through all the steps, understand that you still have a safety net in bankruptcy. And being a bankruptcy attorney, it's one thing. I mean, I love my job, and this is one of the things I love about it, because bankruptcy is such a great area of law, because this is what it's made for. Bankruptcy is made to help you when there's nobody else to help you, and it's your right. It's your right to file bankruptcy, and I love when people realize that, and it just is what it is. There's a lot of folks that have paid their bills on time. They've never thought about bankruptcy, and all of a sudden, boom! It could be one person in the household with a job loss. It could be two people. I mean, these are really, really crazy times. So whatever you do, don't get too despondent. You're gonna have time to figure things out. And that's the one thing I really want to impress upon people today, is that at least here in Georgia, you're going to have time. Now, yes, in Georgia, we foreclose on people very, very fast. I mean, from start to finish, it's just a few months, and it's most of the time it's non-judicial foreclosure. So there's no court hearing, anything like that. So you do need to be paying attention if you are getting notices from your lender. And of course, any promises that the lender tells you, make sure you get them in writing. Again, it's in the guide. But I just wanted to let folks know that bankruptcy is still available. Chapter 13 is still available. It should never be your first choice. If you're facing a foreclosure, there's some steps that you should try. But at the end of the day, if you're also having other financial problems, it may be the best fit for you. The great thing about bankruptcy is, at least at our office, our consultations are always free. They're confidential. And even before the COVID-19 crisis, we were doing phone consultations and video chats. So obviously, we're still doing that. So you can chat with a bankruptcy attorney from the privacy of your own home. But any questions you have about foreclosure, any questions you actually have about the forbearance programs, loan modifications, anything like that, please, please, please visit our website. We actually have got an entire section now set up on COVID-19. the different programs. We're trying to keep that updated on a daily basis. So definitely use us as a resource. We most certainly do not mind. And if you have any questions about bankruptcy, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much.